podcast guesting masterclass. I am so excited that you're here, investing your time into learning how to increase your visibility and your brand awareness in 2025 with podcast guesting. I'm Jessica Rhodes, the founder and co-owner of Interview Connections. We are the world's first ever and leading done-for-you podcast booking agency. Since 2013, we have booked over 30,000 interviews for more than 800 entrepreneurs. And through this masterclass, we have taught tens upon thousands of business owners how to access the power of podcast guesting to grow their business. Yesterday in session one, I taught you how to lay a strong foundation for your podcast guesting strategy. Setting clear goals, making your one sheet, really kind of cleaning up any mindset pitfalls that might hold you back from attracting opportunities. So I want you to tell me in the chat, type live if you were here live on session one yesterday, and then type replay if you watched the replay and you're here live for the first time. I would love to know who was here live, who caught the replay. Let's just celebrate whether you had to catch the replay or you're here live or you haven't caught the replay, but you're here live today. I want to see. Amazing. We've got Fernando watch the replay. Awesome. I'm so excited that you're here today because we've got a really big giveaway today, a microphone and a $100 Amazon gift card. So just edit that Zoom name so we can enter you into the draw. We'll do that at the end of today's session. So thank you so much for being back. All right, we will be giving away, again, that Amazon gift card today and a microphone. And then today is all about monetization strategies. So get your workbook. If you haven't been able to print it out, just go to interviewconnections.com/workbook to follow along. And then you could just write it on a notepad or use a Google Doc. Tomorrow, so we have today, tomorrow, and Thursday. So tomorrow is session 3. That is a panel conversation. So I've got about 5 Interview Connections clients that are coming on to share what their success story has looked like with podcast guesting. The thing that I love most about this strategy is it's not one size fits all, and it looks different for every business owner. So sometimes people ask what's the average ROI or what's the average success rate? And there's not like one data point that is the same for everyone because some people are coming in for leads and brand awareness. Like everyone has different goals, and we work with clients across many different industries and business types. So you'll see kind of a diverse range of entrepreneurs that work with us. So you can see like how you might fit into the strategy and working with Interview Connections. So that's going to be session 3. And then session 4 is on Thursday. Again, same time, same Zoom link as today's session and yesterday's session. It is all about how to amplify your visibility through repurposing your podcast interview content. So I know I asked you yesterday in session 1 if like social media content, creating reels and shorts and videos and posts is a little bit of a thorn in your side. Well, you're going to love session 4 because it's going to be a workshop teaching you how to take your podcast interviews, repurpose them, transcribe them, edit them, clip them, use them in your marketing. It's a super actionable session. Douglas will be leading that with me. So Thursday at 1 is going to be huge if you want to know how to get the absolute most out of your podcast guesting strategy. Again, each session is recorded. We send it out via email and text as soon as it's available, but the replay page is interviewconnections.com/replays, and all the sessions will be there until midnight on Tuesday, the 25th. So again, they will come down at midnight on Tuesday, the 25th, because this is a live masterclass. So if you're not able to watch any of the sessions live, just schedule time into your calendar to catch up on the replay. Now, many of you shared with me yesterday in session 1 that podcast guesting is the strategy that's going to get you to your goals this year. Like you're committed. You have no doubt in your mind that speaking to the right audience is the key to you getting more clients. You know that when you get interviewed and when people ask you questions and pull that information out of you, the best stories come out of conversations with your target audience. Now, if that is you and you know that podcast guesting is the strategy you want to move forward with this year, then book a call. Book a call with me or Douglas this week because we're giving away discounts and bonus prizes. And we have an amazing pay in full bonus where we'll promote you to our email list of small business owners and entrepreneurs. So get your call on the calendar at interviewconnections.com/call. Now, without further ado, let's dive into today's session all about monetizing. Put money in the chat if you want to learn how to make more money in your business by being a guest on podcasts. Yes, money, money, money. Let's go. All right. And that's perfect. Right as I said that, we had 111 people on live, which is a great angel number. So let's dive in. So again, have your workbook because I'll prompt you and there's something to write down in your workbook. Now, number one, this is like literally the first thing you're going to write down because it's so important. Your clients buy from you because they trust you. That is your first thing. My clients buy because they trust me. Now, we've all heard of the know, like, and trust factor, right? Like, we've all heard of that know, like, and trust. In my humble opinion, trust is the most important piece of that equation. You could like someone, you could know someone, but if you do not trust somebody, you are not going to invest your time and money into working with them. Trust is the most important part of the know, like, and trust equation when it comes to closing sales and attracting dream clients. Now, how do you earn someone's trust? On a one-to-one fashion, you build a relationship, you have conversations, you get to know someone. But as an entrepreneur, you're working to grow your audience, expand your reach, scale your business. You can't possibly grow just through one-on-one conversations. But you can if you're a guest on podcasts. Because when people hear you on a podcast, they're hearing you have a conversation, number one, with a podcast host that they already trust because they listen to that show. And number two, they're able to start trusting you because they feel like a fly on the wall of that conversation, right? Like who here, and it's okay if the answer is no, but who here listens to podcasts? Like you are a podcast listener, right? And so when you listen to that podcast, sometimes it feels like you're in the room. Like I've definitely had moments where the host and the guest are having a conversation and they can't think of someone's name. And I'm like screaming at the phone, like, can't you hear me? So as a podcast listener, you feel like you're in the conversation. And while the guest and the host can't hear you in the very moment that they're actually recording the episode, as the listener, you do feel like you trust the guest and the host because it feels like you're a part of the conversation, which is super, super powerful. Now, why is podcast guesting a way to earn people's trust? Now, you're sharing your story, right? You're not just giving information and giving facts, but you are sharing your story. And when people hear where you come from, they hear how you got to where you are, they're going to trust you because they see your humanness and they see what you have done to build to where you are today. So to kind of help illustrate why the trust with the audience and with the host really leads to sales, I want to tell you a quick story. So at the end of 2023, so a year and a half ago, let's say, I was a guest on the Cliff Ravenscraft podcast. Does anyone know who Cliff is? He is known as the Mindset Answer Man. He's a mindset coach for self-employed entrepreneurs who are going through a challenge, whether in their personal life or their business life. So Cliff brought me onto his podcast to do an episode about podcast guesting for his, his audience who are business owners. And we did this great hour-long episode about how to be a great guest. And he really featured interview connections in such a good light, to the point where somebody in his audience, whose name is Thurman Trotman, he's known as Mr. SharePoint. He's an expert in Microsoft SharePoint. Thurman was listening to that podcast. And by the end of that hour-long interview, came to really trust me and interview connections because of the conversation I was having with Cliff and because of the questions that Cliff was asking me and the light that it put me in interview connections in. Thurman reached out. Now, side note about Thurman's story is that he had previously Googled podcast booking agencies. He had already started the process of shopping around for a service like ours, but hadn't quite found the right fit. Then when my episode came up on Cliff's podcast and he heard my interview, he's like, they're it. Interview connections. I trust Jess. She's an expert. So he booked a call with me, signed up that same day. Now, there's a few things about this story that I really want to highlight because this isn't just like I got lucky or, wow, that stars aligned. This was all done very strategically and intentionally. So number one, Thurman trusted Cliff. Thurman was a subscriber of Cliff's podcast. He knew that if Cliff was going to bring a guest on, that was a guest that he should pay attention to. So there was already trust there. When you're a guest on a podcast, you're getting this tacit endorsement from the host of the show. Because I will tell you one thing, if a podcast host brings you onto their show, they're endorsing you, they're showing their audience that they trust you. Worst case scenario, a host will not air your episode if it turns out that they don't trust you. So by the time you make it to air, that's a really good message that they're sending to their audience. Number two, Thurman had previously researched other companies. He was already in the mode of shopping around and looking for the service that we provide. So remember that you have future clients who are already looking for your service. And that is such an important thing to remember mindset wise. While you are working to attract clients and find clients, they're out there looking for you. They are seeking out your service. They're seeking out your, the type of service that you provide. So Thurman was already looking around. And so when he found, when he listened to my interview, it was perfect timing. And then the third thing is that Cliff is an affiliate partner of Interview Connections. So because he's an affiliate partner, he really spotlighted our service in the interview. So it wasn't just like a quick lead magnet. He's like, what does it look like for people to work with you? So the people in his audience who heard my interview really heard a full offer of what the Amplified Authority program is. And that was fully disclosed to his audience. So it was all above board. But I'm pointing this out because a key monetization strategy is to invite podcast hosts to become a referral partner. There's nothing wrong with saying to a podcast host, if you'd like to be an affiliate or a referral partner, I'll pay you a commission for anyone in your audience that becomes my client. So Cliff got a commission for Thurman signing up with Interview Connections. I send him a PayPal commission every single month that Thurman makes a payment with Interview Connections. That is a huge monetization strategy. Cliff Ravenscraft, just like Raven the bird, but Ravenscraft. So that is a huge monetization strategy. I want you to write down in your workbook if you have, who has an affiliate program or a referral partnership program. Maybe it's not official, but like if somebody refers somebody, you'll pay them a commission, right? Invite podcast hosts to be affiliate partners and they will spotlight your service in a much bigger way than if it's just like a quick call to action. Okay, so that is huge. Now, let's get back to why podcast guesting helps you gain people's trust. The host of the podcast will trust you more because they're actually the one that's able to ask you all the questions. They can really dig deeper into the areas that they want to know more about you and your business. So as they ask you questions, they're trusting you more, and then their audience is trusting you more. When you speak on podcasts and share your story authentically, the listeners who love you and will want to connect with you will reach out to you. And then the listeners who hear your story and you're not quite the right fit for them, they won't reach out to you. And that is the whole point. I learned one of the first big marketing business experts that I learned from was Dan Kennedy. Who here is familiar with Dan Kennedy? He's like a marketing legend. My dad introduced me to his, Dan Kennedy in the GKIC world. And he would always talk about magnetically attracting your dream clients and then actively repelling people that are not the right fit for you. That is the goal of sharing your story authentically on podcasts and having conviction in what you're talking about. Is you're not trying to get liked, be liked by everyone, but you're being so convicted in what you do, how you do it, your story, that people that love you are like, let's go. Like, I really want to work with you. I love you guys. And then the people that are like, not for me, they go run in the other direction. That is what builds a really strong brand, is that you stand out and that you're memorable. So think about the aspects of your story that when your dream clients hear them, they're like, yes, you are for me. That's what you really want to make sure that you are sharing when you're on podcasts. And in this market today, 2025, it's saturated, it's commoditized. There are so many people that are doing what you do. People are competing for attention. It's very noisy. And your story is the only thing that makes you stand out. It really, really is. And that's something that you're going to write down in your workbook. Number two, the one thing that makes you stand out and makes you different from your competition is your story. Nobody has your story. They can copy your pricing. They can copy the service deliverables. They can copy everything, but they can't copy your story and they can't copy your values and why you have those values. And I know this because we were the first podcast booking agency to market. So for years, we had zero competition. Those were the days. But as we've grown and as this industry has grown so much and we have so many people that, offer something similar, I continue to share my story on podcasts and I continue to share the values that we have at Interview Connections because that is what makes us unique and different. And that is what has our dream clients say, like, I want to work with Interview Connections because you're the company that I feel called to work with. You're the company whose story really aligns with my story and my values. So when you share your story, that is what will magnetically attract your dream clients. Okay. Now, what about your story makes you unique? All right, think about this and put it in the chat. I'll give you some examples. It could be business related, it could be personal. For me, I'm a mom. I have 2 kids. I founded this business so I could be a stay-at-home mom. Now I have a 9-year-old and an almost 12-year-old. My kids are both competitive athletes, so it is busy. When I say busy, I'm like, we're like chauffeuring all week long after work and after school. I've got 10 backyard chickens, which is like, I've got like a gold mine out there right now as they lay more eggs. Wow, someone came off mute and that was very funny. Maybe that was Douglas. So yeah, so let me know, like in the chat, what is something about your story that makes you unique? Okay, so what is it something about your story that makes you unique, that would set you apart, that would have someone say like, yes, I want your service and what you do, but I want to work with you because of your story. And going back to session 1, this is also something that you're going to put in your bio. So typically the last line of your bio is going to be some personal fun facts so that people understand what you do, they see the credibility, how you got to where you are, and then they learn something a little bit fun about you. So let's see in the chat what people's fun facts are. Let's see. We've got Lisa, 45 years in radiology, specialized in breast health and breast cancer. I love that. Honestly, the chat's going so fast, I don't think I can keep up with it. We got Mitch, who's a lawyer who teaches businesses how to actually run their business from the perspective of storytelling. So write down what makes you unique. What about your story is going to have somebody who maybe they're looking at different businesses in your industry that do the same thing that you do, but what about your story is going to make you unique? That's going to have your dream client say, okay, all these other companies do the same thing for about the same price, but because of this aspect of your story, I want to work with you guys. I cannot emphasize enough how important it is to share your story. And that is really the value of podcast guesting, is you're able to share that story. And not to mention right now, there really has never been a more powerful time to share your story and your humanness, because so many companies are, and honestly, us included, like literally Thursday, we're going to teach you how to use AI to repurpose your interviews. So this is not to say that you should never use technology and AI and bots to help you scale and help you go faster. But because a lot of businesses, including maybe you and I, are leveraging AI, you do need to infuse humanness into your marketing so you create that emotional connection. Because people make investments, they make them logically, but ultimately they pull the trigger, so to speak, on investing in things because of an emotion, because they know it's going to solve a problem that is causing them pain, or they know it's going to help them get to a future place in their business that's going to make them feel really good. There has to be some emotion tied to it. And so sharing your story and connecting with your audience emotionally is what moves people through the buying process to the point of making an investment, right? Facts tell, stories sell. You've got to share your story. You've got to share your humanness. You have to share your value, because that's ultimately what's going to have people move and say yes. All right. Now, another, again, for your workbook, you can use AI to repurpose your podcast interviews into social media content. So that's one of the things that you can write as one of your key monetization strategies. And this is huge because even clips of your podcast appearances can move the needle on your sales. One of our clients, Christina Woods, has been with us for, I think, 3+ years now. She's had an incredible return on investment, like, clients, leads, hosts becoming her client, hosts referring business to her, growing her email list like by crazy amounts through podcast guesting. One of her success stories is that she posted a clip of her podcast appearance on social media. And just that 1-minute clip was enough for somebody who saw that to say, I want to work with you. So there's going to be people who listen to the entire appearance and want to work with you. And then there's going to be people who see like a little clip on social media, and that's just enough for them to say yes. So that is a way that you can generate more leads and sales in your business from your podcast guesting, is to actually get these clips up on your social media. It'll help grow your following. It'll help engage your following, which is what will move people through your funnel down to the point of making an investment. All right. So put AI in the chat if you're excited to learn about how to use AI to create all those clips, because it is such a game changer. If you haven't been posting a lot to social media, but you know you need to, this is going to be huge. I want to see every single one of you typing AI. I want to see you at session 4 on Thursday at 1 p.m. All right. Now, podcast guesting isn't just about sharing your story. It's also about building relationships. And one of the most overlooked yet powerful opportunities to monetize your podcast appearances is the connections and the relationships that you form with the actual host of the show, right? So now let's dive into networking with podcast hosts and how that can open doors to collaborations, to referrals, to new clients, to speaking opportunities. Let me know if you want any of those 4 things: more collaborations, more referrals, more speaking opportunities, more clients. Those things come to you through relationships, and podcast hosts are people that are connected with opportunities, and they're the people that can refer you those opportunities when they interview, after they interview you on their podcast. Okay. Now, I mentioned this earlier in the session, but once you reach a certain point in business, I'm sure many of you are there. One-on-one networking calls is not scalable. It's not something that you have time for. You've got a business to run, you've got a team to manage. And you can't just do one-on-one networking calls with everyone that might be a potential referral partner. But when you get interviewed on their podcast, you can have that one-on-one networking conversation in a recorded setting that then gets aired to their entire audience and gets recorded to a point where you can leverage that recording and actually post it up on your social media and use it in your marketing in so many different ways that I'll tell you about on Thursday in session 4. So podcast hosts are really, it's a high-end networking strategy. And that is what I will shout from the rooftops till the end of time, is this is a high-end networking strategy. Because when you're a guest on podcasts, you're not just being interviewed by some journalist who is hired to interview you. You're being interviewed by a business owner, by an entrepreneur, by a person with a personal brand who's investing in growing their audience. Those are powerful people to build relationships with. Right? Now, hosts could actually become your client. And I can't tell you how many times I've been told by Interview Connections clients that after they recorded an episode with a host, that podcaster became their client. I've also been, I get interviewed 3 to 4 times a month. I practice what I preach. I go out there. I recorded 4 podcast appearances like last Monday through Wednesday alone. And just last month, I had a podcast host interview me. And after she stopped the recording, she goes, I need to be an affiliate partner of Interview Connections. And she signed our affiliate agreement and we got her a link. I've also had podcast hosts just this, like in 2025, who have interviewed me, get off the recording and they're like, I need to be guesting on podcasts. Like I have my own podcast, but I'm featuring other people. I need to be out there. And because she brought me on her podcast, like obviously we're the podcast booking agency that she would work with, because now she trusts me and we have this rapport and this relationship going. So part of the strategy of podcast guesting and what we do with our clients is, who's your dream client? And if they are hosting podcasts, like getting you on the podcast hosted by people that would be clients of yours is a really, really smart use of your time. Now, I'm going to read something here, and I want you to say yes in the chat if this resonates with you. My clients need to be educated about my methodology or my modality or strategy before they invest. We talked about this a bit yesterday when we discussed interview topics and what to have topics about. So say yes in the chat if you really feel that your clients need to have some level of understanding about your strategy or your methodology before they invest. Like if they don't really get it, they're not going to buy it, right? Yes. I think we can all agree with that. Like if you don't understand, like if someone doesn't understand what you do, they're not going to invest in it. Now, as you share that and think about that, I'm going to tell you a story. Julia Blackwell is the creator of the fascia remedy. some people might not even know what fascia means, let alone what problems it can cause or help heal. So, Julia is somebody that absolutely knows that her target audience, her dream clients, need to understand her modality before they invest in her program. Now, the 2 years prior to signing up with Interview Connections and working with us to get booked on 30 plus podcasts, she had closed 22 sales in her program, 22 in 2 years. And then in the first year of podcast guesting, being on 30 podcasts, she closed over 80 sales of her program from being a guest on podcasts. This was a direct result of her going out there, educating. Every time she's on a podcast, she's talking about what is fascia and how does it create, why do you have hip pain and how can, remedying your fat, like she's explaining it all on these podcasts. So when people hear it who have hip pain, they're like, I didn't even realize that was where my pain was coming from. So by her going out and educating people and really raising her celebrity and her authority, she closed over 80 sales in her program. And then she even had people sign up for her high ticket offering because she was promoting those interviews to her list to the point where people were activating. People that were kind of lying dormant, already following her, were then listening to her podcast and getting to know her. So that is what can happen when you have a strategy or a modality that people, maybe they don't get it. They don't understand it. So if they don't understand it, they're not going to invest in it. Going out on podcasts to explain it and really allow people to understand it, share stories to have people get it. That's what's going to move people to the point of making an investment and actually saying, yes, this is what I want. And I can see how this is going to help me meet my goals and solve my problems. All right. Now, let me know in the chat. You could just write yes. If you do sales calls or discovery calls or your team does, like that is a big part of your process in closing new clients is some type of call, like one-on-one call. Yes. Okay, perfect. I mean, we do too, right? Book a call, interviewconnections.com/call. Oh, Limitless says this is fire. Yes, let's go. So if you do sales calls, let me know because I'm about to blow your mind. All right. So you're going to write this down in your workbook. A great way to leverage your podcast appearances is to book more. A great way to leverage your podcast appearances is to actually leverage them to book calls with your list. So I'm going to explain the story. Something that just happened at Interview Connections that demonstrates what this looks like is now you are all registered in our podcast guesting masterclass. And if you were registered, I think before last Thursday, you may have gotten a text message from us with a link to a podcast appearance, a 15-minute podcast. And I think it said something like, hey, in anticipation of our podcast guesting masterclass, check out this 15-minute podcast episode I did on the Podcast Growth Club. So I sent that out to everyone because you all said you're interested in podcast guesting. You're planning to come to this masterclass, but the masterclass was not starting for a few more days. So I said, go listen to this podcast. Now, one person who heard that, they listened to the podcast and he told us this. This is what he said to Douglas. He goes, I listened to that podcast you guys sent me and I said, damn, this is gold. I need to book a call with these guys. So I was like, yay. I love when the strategy works for me. But you all have dream clients who are already on your email list. They're already following you on social media. And we often look at visibility strategies like this, and we're like, I got to go get more leads and more leads. And then we ignore the people that are already following us. Use your podcast appearances to activate the people who you have already attracted into your ecosystem and who are already on your list. Send your podcast appearances to your list. Invite your prospects, your existing leads to listen to your podcast appearances, because when you do really great podcast interviews, they'll listen and say, damn, this was gold. I need to book a call with these guys. All right. I want that for you because it just happened to us and it's absolute gold. So use your podcast appearances, leverage them. This is what's going to get more calls booked for you. Now, you can also use your podcast appearances with your leads who are booking calls with you. So what happens when we schedule a consultation call and we're sending an email to confirm, I say, hey, check out this 15-minute podcast episode I did with some tips and tricks to let you get to know us better. Our client, Mike Maynard, who runs a high 7-figure marketing and PR firm for B2B tech enterprise companies, He will include podcast appearances in his nurture sequence with clients who he's going through a proposal with, because his sales cycle is about a year long. They're closing 6-figure contracts. So it's not like they book a call and they sign up. Like, there's a big proposal that is put together. There's a lot of conversations. And so Mike will include his podcast appearances in that proposal to make his company look different from all those other marketing agencies that are also putting in a proposal to win that contract. So when you feature yourself as an expert, it really will make your company look different and stand out from your competition who, let's face it, they're probably not out there, leveraging this strategy like you could be. All right. So for those of you who know that simply doing what I just recommended, sending your podcast appearances to your list, sending them to people before a consultation call, you're like, if I literally just did that, I would close more sales, then please do not implement this strategy. Like, book a consultation call at interviewconnections.com/call, because you are truly leaving money on the table by not moving forward and implementing this strategy, getting booked on 3 podcasts a month. And I want to book you. I want Interview Connections to get you out there. So go to interviewconnections.com/call, get your consultation call on the books. Now, let's say, who wants more monetization strategies? Because I got more where this is coming from. So tell me money in the chat if you're like, this is amazing, I want more tips, okay? Because I've got more for you. So collaborate with the podcast host. So many of my monetization strategies are all about the host, because that's where you're going to make the most money, is through relationships with the host. So collaborate with the host. I get booked, like I said, 3 to 4 podcasts every single month. I practice what I preach. And one thing that I see is that podcast hosts really value collaborating with their guest. Every single interview is going to end with a conversation in what we call the green room. Like, they turn off the recording and then there's some chit chat that happens after the interview is done. Now, it's in that chit chat green room time that hosts and guests will collaborate. I'm like, what more could we do together? Now, some hosts will say, I need to have you back. Some hosts will say, I want you to come speak to my clients. I'll tell you a couple of things that happened for me just over the past few months. One podcast that I was interviewed on her show in like August. I think I was booked in like May, and then we recorded in August. It went live in like November. And then about a month or so ago, she said, I have a private mastermind group, and I would love for you to come in and do a session teaching them about podcast guesting. I'm like, absolutely, I'm in. So I got that on the books. That's a private speaking opportunity. I am also speaking on a summit this month. It's actually next week, with a podcast host. Her name is Samantha Riley. She interviewed me on her podcast, and then she said, I'm organizing a summit. I loved our interview. I'd love for you to be one of the speakers. Boom, collaborating with the host. You can also bring the host to do something with you. I've had multiple podcast hosts that I've invited to speak to our clients at Interview Connections. One of the hosts that interviewed me, his name is Jeff Rowe of the Digital Dominance Podcast. He's an expert in websites and website conversions. And if there's one thing I know about visibility, is that if your website doesn't convert well, you won't get the most out of the strategy. So I said, Jeff Rowe, will you come to a training for Interview Connections clients to show them how to have a highly converting website? He's like, absolutely. So remember that monetizing, it's not always about what you can get from the host. It's not always about the host signing up with you or giving you a referral. Like, that is absolutely something we're attracting, but it's also about how can you give value to the host? Like, where do you have an audience where if that host has an expertise that's good for your audience, how can you give value to them? Because you will ultimately grow your business through the value of reciprocity. Right? Like Bob Berg, who's somebody I've known for 11 years, my dad introduced me to him. He wrote a book called The Go Giver, and it is all about the power of reciprocity. This is not about what you can just get from hosts and get from the audience. It's also about the value that you give to the host and that you give to the audience. And when you have that mindset of like collaboration and like what I can give to you and what you can give to me, that's where your business really grows. Okay? All right. That's what happens when I just start going. I lose track of my notes. I want to give you one other cool story. One of our clients, Timothy Wingate Jr. I love when this happens because we're always like managing expectations. This is a long-term strategy. You're not always going to have your huge ROI like in month one. Well, I love when our clients prove us wrong. They're like, I'm going to get my huge ROI in month one. So our client, Timothy Wingate Jr., he has a bookkeeping and accounting business for the construction industry. So bookkeeping and accounting, but his niche is construction companies. And so we booked him on podcasts speaking to that market. And one of the podcast hosts who interviewed him was like, blown away by the episode, was like, this was amazing, and said, Timothy, I have an in-person conference, and he hired Timothy to be a keynote speaker, like all expenses paid keynote speaker opportunity. Timothy went to that conference, spoke. He got so many leads and clients. Like his business exploded. He ended up increasing his rates by like 500% because the demand was so high. That host brought him back to speak again at his next conference. So completely transformed his business. That was one podcast host did that. One podcast host connected him with that to the point where his business like absolutely exploded. So I cannot emphasize enough the value of podcast hosts. And I'm really nailing this point in because the biggest mindset pitfall that you can have in podcast guesting is, how big is the audience? Like, did you not just hear what I said? Like, what can happen when you focus on your relationship with the host is so much bigger than trying to get in front of like one big audience or trying to get in front of the biggest shows. So trust me when I say this, like I've been doing this for over a decade and I want you to do this successfully and do it well. And focusing on collaborating with the host, focusing on giving value, like sharing your story, leveraging the recordings with your current audience, like that's how you're going to see an ROI so much more than just trying to get on like the biggest show because you think it's a silver bullet to success. It takes time. In fact, I was just talking with Dr. Jolie last night because I'm like, I talked about you at masterclass. She's the one that was on Dr. Sanjay Gupta's podcast. And she was kind of reflecting on how big of a deal this is to be on his podcast. Now she's on the CNN health blog and there's all these backlinks on this huge website. And she goes, what so many people don't realize is the 5 years of consistent podcast guesting that got to this point. You know, we all want the silver bullet to success. We all want like, can I just write a big check and get there overnight? But it's that vision of like the iceberg, and like what you don't see is all the work below. And so it's not like the sexiest lesson to be like, it actually just takes consistency and long-term effort, but that is the truth. And I'm here to tell you the truth. When you're consistent and when you implement this strategy in the way that I'm teaching you, that's how you're going to get to the point where, you know, in a few years' time, you're like, Jess, this podcast just found me on Google from all the podcasts that I've been doing. Okay. All right. So in your workbook, I want you to write down one thing out of everything I just told you, one action you can take to collaborate with hosts. Like maybe you have a group coaching program and you're going to say, when I am interviewed on a podcast with a host who has an expertise that's relevant to my audience, I'm going to invite them to speak to my audience. Or maybe it's, I'm going to do an Instagram live with a podcast host who interviews me and we're going to collaborate that way. Like write down one thing that you can do to collaborate with podcast hosts. Okay. Next, now we're going to talk a little bit about the audience and actually converting leads and sales from people who hear you on podcast. Now, the big thing that you're going to do is at the end of your podcast appearance, you're going to give a call to action. CTA, we're going to say CTA for short. So you're going to give a call to action, which is what the call to action is triggering, it's opening the door for those listeners to go on a journey. They're going on a journey towards eventually becoming your client. And so the call to action is you just putting them on the right path. You know, you don't want to be like, you can just find me, like just Google me. I'm on Instagram, I'm on LinkedIn. I also have a website and I have a lead magnet. That is like opening a door with 10 cats and expecting them to all go in the same place. Like they're going to be going everywhere. So you want to give them one place to go, because you know that if they go to that one place, they're going to go on a very nicely organized pipeline where your team is going to reach out and nurture them, and they're going to move right down towards becoming your client. That is the CTA. And if you're not doing that, that might be why you're not monetizing your podcast appearances. Your call to action should get those listeners on the nice path towards eventually becoming your client. All right. So let's go through some examples of calls to action that really, really work. So number one, it could be a discovery call or a strategy session. So our client, Mark Willis, is a CFP. He's worked with us for many, many years because he works. He gets like dozens and dozens of leads and clients every single month from podcast guesting. It's amazing. And so what he does is he invites people to go to his website where they can book a discovery call with his team and they get a free copy of his book. Simple. people hear him on a podcast, they're like, I want that. I want the book. They book a call. His team, nurtures them and closes them. And it's like, let's go. You can also give a high value lead magnet. So I mentioned in yesterday's session, when I'm a guest on podcasts, I say to the audience, you can go to interviewconnections.com/prep, get our podcast interview prep checklist. It's a 4-page checklist that's going to give you all of our tips on how to prepare for your podcast interviews and make the most of them. Anyone that hears me on a podcast about podcast guesting is going to want that checklist. So every single day, people are opting in for that checklist and they're going into a pipeline where Douglas from Team Interview Connections is able to reach out to them personally, in addition to them getting an automated email that gives them that gift right away. So make sure you're getting people into your email list where then you can nurture them and keep in touch with them. And then you can also send them to your community. Maybe you have a Facebook group or a LinkedIn forum, like someplace on social media where you can get in touch with them. All right. And if you're not sure what your call to action should be, we do help you with that in the Amplified Authority program. And you might choose a call to action and then realize you want to change your call to action in a few months' time after you test it out. Because marketing is all about testing and tweaking. I'm never going to tell every single business owner they should have a lead magnet or they all should go to a consult call. It really depends on your business, your clients, your sales cycle. How do you nurture your leads? Like, do you send emails? There's a lot of variables. And so we run coaching calls for our clients to help you figure out what the best CTA should be for your business. So if you want to learn more about how we can help you do that, go to interviewconnections.com/call. And your homework for today's session is going to be to choose a call to action. Think about like, what would be the best next step after somebody hears you on a podcast? What should your call to action be? You're going to write that down and send it in support@interviewconnections.com and we can take a look at it and give you some feedback. So we still have the giveaway at the end of the session. So don't go anywhere because you're all entered into the giveaway. But we're going to do a quick recap because I was on a roll in that session and we're going to just kind of recap everything we learned. So far we're at the halfway point of this podcast guesting masterclass. We still have 2 more sessions to go. At this point, you have that clarity on how to get started. You now have some clarity on what your goals for podcast guesting are, your target audience, who you need to speak to, what types of shows would be a good fit for you. And now you've got some really amazing strategies, some fire strategies for monetizing your visibility. And what you do not want to do is to spend countless hours trying to sift through the many different podcast directories online, trying to find the shows that are still publishing, that take guests, that are your target market, that have hosts that are a good fit. Like, you don't want to do that. It takes a lot of time and you don't want to do the pitching. There's a reason I don't do a how to pitch yourself course, is because as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, your time is better spent actually being the guest and being on the show, not in like trying to get yourself booked and dealing with the rejection and the follow-up and all of that stuff. And you don't want to waste time not seeing results. Like, I've already told you all these amazing results that you can see when you implement the strategy effectively. And I want you to see those results like 2025, not in 2026, because you're going to try to do this on your own for a while. So you now have a choice at this point. You can stay where you are and you're like, no, Jess, that's okay. I'm just going to do it myself and try to figure it out. Or you can step into the spotlight and you're like, I want to work with you guys. I want to grow my business. I want to do this effectively. I don't want to do it all myself. Let's go. So if that is you, book a consultation call at interviewconnections.com/call so we can get you on the fast track to actually seeing results from podcast guesting. Now, why Interview Connections? Why not just do this yourself or, some other way? We are the first ever podcast booking agency. And when you are investing in a company to get you connected, you want the company with the most connections. We've booked over 30,000 podcast interviews, which means we've pitched hundreds upon thousands of podcasts. We have our own proprietary software and database of podcast hosts that we use to find the best possible shows for our clients. And we're adding to that database every single day. We've worked with over 800 clients in 11 years. And we have countless success stories of clients who actually monetize this strategy, who use podcast interviews as a way to get more leads and sales in their business. We specialize in working with established entrepreneurs and business owners who feel like the best kept secret, who have a great company, who have strong revenue, but aren't totally known to new audiences. And entrepreneurs who know that when the right people hear them speak, they get more business. Like that is just a knowing that they have, is like, when the right people hear me speak, I will grow. And that's who we work very, very well with. Now, unlike coaches and courses, we do it for you. Like, we do it for you. We're not here to just teach you how to do it on your own. Like, this is a done for you agency where when you work with us, you don't have to figure it out on your own. We actually have a whole team. We have 12 local full-time employees who are going to do all the work to find the shows, qualify them, vet them, pitch them, and get you booked. Now, I've mentioned the Amplified Authority program a few times throughout the masterclass. So now I'm going to tell you exactly what it looks like to work with us. So number one, you get 30 guaranteed bookings on targeted podcasts that align with your goals, your area of expertise, and who your dream clients are. Okay. Number two, you get a professionally designed podcast one sheet and a guest expert media kit. So we'll put all of that together for you in month one. You also get 2 interview audits. So we're not just going to book you on podcasts and say, like, hope you remember what you learned in the masterclass and you do a good job. Like, we're actually, when your interviews start going live, your point of contact is going to listen to an episode and give you personalized feedback. And I have seen the reports that our team sends, like, they go above and beyond. You will get a whole document, you will get personalized feedback on what sounded really good, what could be tweaked and improved to see more results from your podcast appearances. And then we also have group client calls. So while this is not a group coaching program, there are opportunities to meet with our team on group calls to get that expert guidance on, let's say you want some help with your call to action, or your interviews are going live and you're like, I need some guidance on how to repurpose these and post them on social media and things like that. Or you really want to be networking with hosts more effectively and you're not sure how to kind of like enter in those conversations. We have group calls every single week that you can jump onto to get that support and that guidance from our team. And then once a quarter, we host a networking call. We invite all of our clients to come so you can network with each other and see where there might be some referral partnership opportunities or shared resources or just wisdom from clients who have been with us a long time to clients who are just getting started. Our program, we know, is not for everyone. So it might not be for you, but it might be for you. So this program, the Amplified Authority program, is for you if you have a successful business, but you still feel like the best kept secret. It's for you if your best content and your best stories flow when you are responding to questions. Like, maybe you don't know what to do a video on or what to write about just by yourself in your office, but if somebody starts asking you questions, you're lit up and you're going. If you've plateaued, like, you've done everything you can with the referrals you're getting, you're doing everything you can with your existing audience and your email list and your social media, but you're like, if I'm going to go to the next level, like, I actually need visibility to new audiences. So just put me in the chat if you're like, yeah, I need to get visibility to new audiences. I've got referrals, but like, if I'm going to get to the next level, I actually need more people to know about me. All right. And if you believe that speaking to the right audience is the key to consistent growth, like, when people hear you speak, they want to work with you. If that is you, then this is the perfect program for you. This program is not for you if you are currently struggling to make ends meet and you need an overnight fix. It's not for you, okay? And it's not for you if you are not ready for a long-term commitment. We work with clients for 10 to 12 months. We get you on 30 podcasts. So if you're looking for just like an impulse buy, like, let me just do this program for a month and maybe it'll be fun. Like, it's not, we're not here for that. We're here to commit with you and work with you long-term. Now, what is the investment? The $1 million question. It's not $1 million, but the investment is normally $17K or 10 payments of $1,850. So there is a payment plan. But if you sign up by Tuesday, February 25th at midnight, so you have 1 week from the date that this is recording, you get $1,000 off. So you can pay in full $16K or 10 payments of $1,750 per month. Now, everyone who signs up by Tuesday, the 25th, is going to get our equipment bundle. So you're going to get a microphone, you're going to get a microphone stand. So it's all at the right level. You're going to get a light. I'm going to get you headphones. So like, literally all the equipment that you need to sound and look amazing on podcasts. I'm going to buy that for you when you sign up for the Amplified Authority program by Tuesday, February 25th. And now, we have put together a bonus that I, quite frankly, have been resistant to offering because it is incredibly valuable. And it's something that I've only offered a couple of times to clients when they're renewing. But we decided to go big in this masterclass because it's Valentine's Day month and we love you and we want you to see results and we want you to see them fast. So for everyone who signs up during the masterclass, so by Tuesday 25th, and chooses the pay in full option, we are going to promote you in a special broadcast email to our entire email list. Now, one thing about our email list is that we have thousands of people on our email list, and we have a 40% open rate. You are on our email list, most likely. You get my messages. We have an extremely good relationship with our community, and I'm ready to promote you to them if you pay in full during this masterclass. Because there's one thing I know, if you want speed and you want results and you want them now, then we can get that for you. But you got to pay in full during the masterclass. I don't want to see you kicking the tire down the road. I want to see you commit, and I'm going to match that commitment by promoting you to our email list. So that is only for clients who pay in full by midnight on Tuesday the 25th. You're going to get instant visibility to our email list, which is likely going to get you interview opportunities even before we do your one sheet, because we have a lot of podcasters on our email list. So like, again, we've done this a couple of times before. And what will happen is people are like, wow, podcast hosts are reaching out to me and inviting me onto their show. Like, you will get immediate results if you pay in full by Tuesday 25th. So I don't know if we're going to do this again, because literally we have not done this before. And, but I think it's going to be really great. So I would love for you to take advantage of this while it's an option. The next step is to book your consultation call, interviewconnections.com/call. We want to make sure it's a good fit. We want to get all of your questions answered. So go to interviewconnections.com/call. Our calendar is open all week, all weekend, up until next Tuesday. But let's do this. Like, you want to get on podcasts, visibility as a next step. Take action now. Move forward at the speed of instruction. If you are excited today about what I've taught you, act on that excitement and book a call. All right. So now we're going to do the microphone draw and the Amazon gift card draw. So Douglas, take it away.
All right. So today's winner is.
Wait, Douglas, winner for what? You got to specify which prize.
Oh, today's winner for the microphone draw is Chastity Green.
Chastity Green wins the microphone. Congratulations. All right. Now who's getting that 100 buckaroos?
And the winner for the 100 buckaroos, hashtag buckaroos, is Dr. Orletta Cadwell. Dr. Orletta Cladwell. Yeah.
Congratulations to both of you. They are winning the ATR 2100, which you will get when you invest in the Amplified Authority program by Tuesday the 25th. So congratulations to both of our winners. We're going to get, if you want the gift card, we're just going to send that to your email. If you want the microphone, we just need to get your mailing address. And congratulations. So fun. Make sure you're coming back here for session 3 tomorrow, which is going to be awesome. We have an incredible panel. We have medical doctors. We've got social media marketing experts. We've got Mr. SharePoint coming. Like, it's going to be a party, and we're going to get all your questions answered. One last thing, Douglas is leading after party live streams in the Facebook group, Guest Expert Profit Lab. So if you want to really get more guidance, learn from Douglas, really deepen your takeaways, get your questions answered, go into the Facebook group, Guest Expert Profit Lab, at 6 p.m. Eastern time today, 3 p.m. Pacific. Interviewconnections.com/group. So congratulations, Chastity. Woo! Okay, amazing. And I will see you all here tomorrow for session 3.